Hello everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Cool. Okay, so firstly, I speak in a strange New Zealand and English accent, so if you can't understand me, just make the sign of a wounded reindeer, which is kind of a little bit like this. Back, see one person's already making it. Right, so my name's Martijn. I like to cause trouble in the Java community. Oracle has, at one time or another, named me as public enemy number 1. But we're good friends now, honest. So I'm just going to try and take you through a bit of a light-hearted talk about some anti-patterns I've seen over my years of running software development teams. I promise not to poke too much fun at my hosts from Vaadin, because I've seen some interesting things happening while Vaadin 7 was built. I will also try and make sure I say some reasonably nice and useful and helpful things, as opposed to just pure lies. So, anti-patterns, we all like patterns. So, I'm going to cover about 10 or so today. And the first one for the Vaadin guys. Everyone knows about deadline-driven delivery. So you start off with these really nice intentions. We're going to refactor the code. We're going to build a beautiful new plugin ecosystem. And then the CEO comes along and says, we've got a customer, they've signed the check. You need to get the product out next week. Hands up all you Vaadin engineers in the room. You understood that, do that to you? You don't say yes, you can tell me afterwards in the bar. Probably fix your bonus. So, Vaadin 7, my goodness, that's what happened. So I always like to say that real professionals, really top-notch engineers, are rock stars and ninjas. We can write code and we can build applications in a week, right? We have all these beautiful new frameworks, we can use Scala, everything just works really perfectly, so nothing to worry about. For conference speakers, they tend to write their slides minutes before the deadline is due, and it actually works. And the reason why it works is because humans work really, really well under pressure. So the more pressure you put on your development team, the better code they'll produce and the more code they'll produce. This is a top management tip for you. Has anyone ever served in the military? A few people, right? Are you familiar with the 6 Ps? Okay, so proper prevention prevents piss poor performance. It's something that my old sergeant major used to yell at me. And this pretty much goes for software development teams and conference speakers as well, if you're into that sort of thing. You have to prepare, okay? Allowing your CEO to rush you at the last minute is going to create an awful product. And the only thing that ends up happening is that Vaadin 7.0.1 comes out the following week to fix the issues that really need to be fixed in the first place.
I'm pretty sure I saw you hacking your slides minutes ago.
I put Vaadin references in this whole slide deck, you'll love it. And I'm never going to get invited back here ever again. I've only ever spoken once at Java 1 as well for some reason. So in reality, what can you do? There's always a balance. There's a balance between delivering products, especially in today's world where competitors to the Java ecosystem, such as the Ruby on Rails crowd, they can knock out applications in a weekend. And we, for a very long time, have struggled to do the same. Now, admittedly, with toolkits and frameworks like Vaadin, it is actually now possible as a Java developer to build things quickly. And the key is to use what I call little a agile. So, are there any Scrum people in the room? Are you any Scrum certified masters? Get the fuck out. Go away, seriously. If I have one more Scrum certified master tell me how to run my IT project after taking a 1-week Scrum course, I will probably kill them. Scrum is a pyramid scheme. Nothing more, nothing less. However, it does have some good ideas, as does Kanban, as does XP, that you can utilize for you and your software team. But the key thing is you do not just apply Scrum blindly to your team. Pick out the bits and pieces that you know you and your developers will actually work well with. It could be pair programming, it could be sprints, it could be retrospectives. If you throw the entirety of Scrum at a team that's been used to doing waterfall development and delivering a product once every 16 months, was it, or so, you're just going to end up killing the team, and it's harmful to morale, and it just ruins the whole idea of agile and we all suffer from it. Number 2, mortgage-driven development. I like this one at the moment. We're in tough economic times, and it's very important for you to keep your job. That means do not communicate with your colleagues. Do not write anything down in a design document. Do not commit code to GitHub, only to your own local repo, and then back it up on a USB stick and take it home. This way your boss over here can never fire you. You're right, you have a job for life because all the important source code is with you and you alone. Very important if you need to keep your job. So basically, be this guy, be a cave troll. The reality is the tech sector in a lot of places around the world is actually booming. So don't succumb to fear. Don't worry about this doom and gloom story about recessions around the world. Okay? Places like the Silicon Valley, for example, places like where I come from, London at the moment, we cannot find good enough engineers. There is a massive shortage of good engineers around the world, and so never ever be afraid of needing to hold on to your job. If you're a good engineer, and you are if you came on this boat, then don't succumb to fear. You will always be able to find good work out there. Another point to make about this is that developers who communicate the best, who get their ideas across, win the war. There are lots of good ideas that could have gone into the Linux kernel, for example, but because that particular person couldn't convince Linus to accept the change, never happened. Okay? And this is true in your own software projects and any open source project you see out there. The best technical solution does not always win. The solution that is best communicated with the rest of your team is the one that wins. Okay? I'm going to say this many, many times tonight, and I will say it until the cows come home. Software development is a social activity. It is not a technical one. Controversial, I know. But you've been around long enough and you'll see what I mean. Next one, distracted by Shiny. Who here has been using some Scala in the source code? In Scala, Closure, Java 7, Vaadin 7. Yes. Okay. Typically, as developers, we like the latest bleeding edge technology. A new version of Eclipse comes out, even if it's a milestone release. We're like, yeah, we'll probably upgrade. Good idea, right? Yeah. Don't forget that when you see a large pile of treasure like this, there's usually a dragon sitting somewhere really close to it. So, evil me says, yep, always use the latest tech, always use the latest research. NoSQL, absolutely get in there. Personally, I like querying using Erlang and writing map reducers to do some basic business querying. My marketing team tells me that it's telling them to go and screw themselves, but I don't care because I'm using the latest tech, so that's all cool. And I have a much higher chance of getting on Hacker News as well, which is quite important. What we've actually taken to in our startup, and this is something that Matt Rabel has actually advised for years, this will be another reference to Vaadin shortly, is you can actually have the best of both worlds. You can have all of the new shiny toys that you want. They just have to be the appropriate toy for the appropriate situation. And the way to find it out is simply to prototype the new technologies that are coming out. And you would be surprised how quickly you can do this. You can grab your colleagues for 1 hour at a lunchtime or 1 hour after work, and you can try out Vaadin 7. You could try out Grails. You could try out Closure as a new language. Once you go through and you have picked 2 or 3 technologies for a particular area you want to solve, you can then come up with a very, very quick checklist on what it is that you want that new technology to achieve. So when people evaluate web frameworks, for example, they will look for things like, does it have JSON support? Does it have WebSocket support? Can I easily template things using normal CSS type technologies? And you can go through the checklist very quickly within a couple of days, and then you can actually start using some of the latest tech. Trying to pick latest tech based on something that you're being told on a website and implementing it in a 3-month project is paramount to disaster, so please don't do that. And if you are a project manager here, or if you run a tech team, please let your developers prototype new technologies, It'll keep them happy, and who knows, you might actually find a technical advantage hiding in there. So I've already talked about this. Brown bag sessions are really good. That's when you grab lunch, grab your colleagues at lunchtime, sit down and do that. My next favourite one, design-driven design. Now, this will be a question again for the Vaadin guys. How big was the class diagram that you drew before you started coding? This big? This big? Maybe this big? Okay. I have seen these, especially at banks and at other enterprises, written up constantly. So there will be a technical architect for the team, the system architect, and the 2 tech leads, and they will draw out a diagram like this, and it will take them 4 weeks. And in that 4 weeks, the customer has changed their mind 3 times. The 2 developers who like just getting on with stuff have actually really built 2 prototypes, and they've killed about 5 trees by printing out papers and spreading them across the wall. So I like to say that UML Code Generators are absolutely cool. Has anyone here used the Eclipse Rational Unified Process Eclipse Workflow Toolkit thing? It's awesome. So you just draw one of these diagrams back here, and you hit the Generate Code button, and then you go home and you play games for 2 months, and you tell your project manager, I'm done. Really cool. So in reality, design for what you need now, and what you need now really depends on what industry you're in. Okay? If you're dealing with a consumer-facing website such as Facebook, Twitter, etc., what you need now is, generally speaking, is what customers are demanding of you that week. Okay? If you're building a nuclear power plant, designing for what you need now is maybe, you may have to put a bit more thought into it. But the lifespan of the software and features is going to be more like 10, 20, or the next 10,000 years. So one of the tricks I like to do is I pay my junior developers for the amount of code that they write, and then I pay my senior developers on how much code they take away. So for senior developers, when you see their diffs, when you see their patches go in, if there's more negative lines of code than there is positive lines of code, those are the developers you pay bonuses to. Okay? Source code is a liability. Every line of source code that you have is a potential bug, is a potential edge case, and adds to your maintenance and support cost. And this is why people who write Lisp are the only true kick-ass programmers in the world. And you'll see them because they have long white beards down to their necks. Next anti-pattern, Pokemon patterns. Who here owns a copy of the Gang of 4 Design Patterns book? Ooh, only a small handful of you. I knew he would admit to it. So, here we have the model view controller. We've got the session facade here. I think we've got a visitor pattern here, data access object over there, a DTO up there, and yeah, that's probably about it.
Right, my daughter's crying. you misnamed her favorite Pokemon.
Oh no, I'm terribly sorry. I was actually told that Pokemon are no longer cool for children. I don't know. They were certainly cool when I was relatively young, many years ago. So there's this kind of problem that we have in Java in general, especially in enterprise Java, where we like to grab every frickin' design pattern in the book and use all of them. I have seen numerous web applications which have got 9 layers in them. 9. And this is to save the equivalent of a reindeer with a name and a birth date down to the database. I'm actually going to go now take a look at LifeRay's internal code and see how many layers they've got. And I'm going to bet it's more than the 3 that it absolutely needs. So use all of the Gang of 4 design patterns. If you do, and especially if you talk in terms of the patterns to your colleagues, you sound very knowledgeable. And you should really do this when your boss walks past, because remember, we're in a very tight recessionary environment and you need to keep your job. So you have to be fitter and better than your colleagues. They need to be fired first. So obviously the appropriate design pattern is your friend. An interesting kind of trend you see in language design and design patterns and things is that design patterns tend to turn to frameworks. So if you think of the design pattern, or at least the principle of dependency injection or inversion of control, that started out as a concept and as an idea. And over time in the Java space in particular, things like Pico Container, Spring and Juice came into being. And now with Java 7 and with Java EE, I think from 5 onwards, dependency injection is more or less built into the language itself. So you kind of see these transitions from idea or design pattern in a book into framework, then into an actual language feature that everyone just takes for granted. So have a think about that if you are thinking about designing your own language going forward. So what can you do, practically speaking? It can be very hard to translate abstract design patterns that are in a book into actual working code. And the best way to do this, and something that humans tend to be very good at, is just to simply visualize the patterns. It only takes you 5 to 10 seconds with your colleagues, whiteboard marker out, draw the design pattern that you're trying to achieve, and you can very quickly visualize edge cases and the things that can possibly go wrong with it. In my mind, all software developers and all software architects, and all software architects, by the way, should be developers and vice versa, should all carry whiteboard markers on you. My next favourite anti-pattern. Who here has had to do some performance tuning of their application? Who here found out it was a Hibernate problem? Yes. So, I'm the CTO of the Java Performance Tools company. This is why I harp on about performance and performance tooling. But this is typically what people do when they go to performance tune a typical Java application. They have no idea where to start. So what do? They light some black candles and they start guessing based on their experience or something they read on a blog post or what they asked their postman outside that morning. And before you know it, months go past. And that website, that eBay, is still losing $5 million US a day because of performance issues. So you really have to watch out for this. It's this simple. When you are doing performance tuning or you think you have a performance problem, please do not dive in and guess. Don't assume it's Hibernate, even though it always is. Don't assume it is your bad XML parsing or your string concatenation. Don't assume you just need to give your hardware some more RAM. You need to actually measure what is going on. I can't remember which presentation it was. It was the Vaadin 7 presentation where they showed the speed runner test. That's the sort of measurements you should be taking. Actually take a look at what one of your business transactions is doing and where the time is being taken. You will be very, very surprised when you analyze your application where performance is actually a problem or not. You can't just throw more RAM at a problem. It doesn't work. What can you do practically? Join our community program and learn more about the stuff. Shameless plug. Next anti-pattern. So, for my sins, I help run an open source project called PCGen. It is a character generator for role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons and Star Wars. So it allows me to put out my geek credentials. I have a class on there called player character. Can anyone guess how many lines of code player character has in it? Any guesses? Not 1,000 lines of code. Not 10,000 lines of code. Yes, we had a Java class with 141,192 lines of code in it. And why? Because it made sense to the original developers to have everything in one file. Because it was easier to find. So, especially if you are an Eclipse user, I will challenge you to actually code faster than someone who just puts everything in one Java file and uses anonymous inner classes to split everything out. And we've done some live coding at conferences before, and sure enough, the person who has all the code in a single file, actually in the short term, tends to be a hell of a lot faster. So I say screw OO, don't worry about splitting out stuff into different classes. Just have one Deity class, one God class if you will, and you'll be fine. Have people heard of the solid principles before? Uncle Bob? Anyone? No? Yeah, one or two people? Okay, so I'll see if I can remember them. I'm just going to cheat actually because it's late at night. So, SOLID is an acronym. The S stands for Single Responsibility Principle, which means that every one of your classes should do one thing and one thing well. Your methods should do one thing and one thing well. Player character did about 15,000 things really badly. You have the open for extension and close for modification principle. L is for list cost substitution, which basically means you should have good polymorphism in your code base. I is for interfaces, and that basically says you should have lots of specific interfaces as opposed to one generic one. And D is just for dependency injection, which I hope most people are using today, or they're mocking stuff. The reality is that if your team, after a Vaadin boat cruise at 3 o'clock in the morning, fixing that Vaadin 701 bug, can still read your code, then you've probably actually done a really good job. Because, again, a lot of developers don't realize they will spend about 90% of their development careers fixing other people's code or working or maintaining existing code. It is very, very rare that you will sit down and write new code in your life. So, if you want to be kind to your fellow developers, write code that is just readable. Because if you don't, then you will be getting that phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning and you won't be a happy person. Do we have any lean startups in the room? I think the previous presentation, where is he? There it says he's a startup, he's a lean startup ninja. Excellent. So this is the motto of lean startup ninjas, and if Vaadin had followed this, they would have actually shipped Vaadin 7, a year ago. When it compiles, just ship the damn thing. You don't need to worry about QA because your users are your QA. Okay? Agile software development is all about getting feedback and getting fast feedback, so just throw the code directly at your users. It also saves you a lot of money in hardware because you don't have to have test environments anymore. You can fire your test team, which is really economical, and you don't like them anyway. Who really likes their test team? Nobody really likes them, so this is definitely the way forward. If I'm to put on my slightly nicer hat, are people familiar with continuous delivery or continuous deployment as a concept? Yeah? So, we're hearing a lot of hype in the space at the moment. People are calling it DevOps, and there's all sorts of fun new hipster tools you can use like Chef and Puppet and things like that. But the ability to tell your business that you can change your software in accordance with their needs on a daily or even an hourly business is incredibly, incredibly powerful. It doesn't just transform you as an IT team to be able to deploy to production 10 times a day. It changes your entire business. So as an example, one of the investment banks I worked for made a cool £35 million profit on trading Apple stock because their software could be changed hourly in production. Their trading algorithms could be changed on the fly by the team that was running it. Their rivals can deploy to their trading platforms maybe once every 2 weeks. So you can see immediately there's a huge competitive advantage in being able to do this. How do you go about doing it practically? Start having a look at these tools. Get your whole team involved, okay? Build and CI and build scripts and deployment scripts should be treated as a first-class citizen in your code base. It is just as important as the business logic that you write. And your whole team needs to know how to do this stuff, or you will be left behind. It's an absolute guarantee. So look for these tools. If you're JVM based, then at the moment Chef is better than Puppet because it's just friendlier to JVM installations like Tomcat, etc. And if you want to know more about that sort of stuff, just have a chat to me afterwards. Next anti-pattern, CV++. Do we have any contractors in the room or freelancers? Yeah, they're smiling already because they know exactly what I'm talking about. So in order for these guys to get their next job, what they do on their current job is they pad out their CV by playing around with new cool technologies on their current boss's time. I was a contractor for 8 years, so I know this game very well. So if you're a boss, watch out for these sneaky people. Of course, knowing what next technology you should pick, just simply look at the Tiobe index. It is a highly scientific, highly accurate measurement of what you should be learning next. Visual Basic is still, I believe, number 4 on the list, so you should probably think about quitting Java, which is on the way down, by the way, according to the Tiobe index. And languages such as, I think, Visual Basic.NET and a few others are on their way up. So certainly go there to pad out your CV. I think the reality is, and hopefully most people in the room have learned this over the years, that if you are simply good at the principles of programming and software development, if you care about your logic, if you practice things like test-driven development, if you understand the concepts of recursion and the difference between passing by value and passing by reference, if you've actually looked under the hood of the JVM and understood what garbage collection does, what the just-in-time compiler does, these are the principles that will take you throughout your whole career, as opposed to worrying about what the exact latest syntax of, say, Spring 3 or Spring 4 has put out last week. You will never be able to keep up with all the frameworks. You will never be able to keep up with all the new languages coming out. But as long as you're still guided by the principles, you will be absolutely fine. Being a software developer is way more important than being a good programmer. So I've met plenty of people, particularly ones who've come from an academic background, who can hack out thousands of lines of Lisp in half an hour. But they don't have any tests. They can't build it except for in their own environment. They don't know how to deploy it. They can't communicate it to others. And they actually forgot to ask the person they were building the software for what the requirements were. Being a software developer is far more important than being a good programmer. Unless you work for Google. Did I say that? Next anti-pattern. Who here is doing something in the cloud? Yay! Jump in with the hype. This is what I think of cloud. So I asked this question at Java 1 last year, and I think I had an audience of about 400 people. Guess how many people were actually really doing commercial work in the cloud out of 400? 1. Very close to the back there. That was very good. So 1 person. If you go to any conference today, or if you read the tech media, you think everybody in the world is doing cloud stuff. And you're probably quite worried as developers, oh, I'm not doing cloud, I'm going to be left behind by this new cool generation. As a few analysts from a friendly firm called Red Monk have said, real cloud deployments, real commercial cloud is a tiny, tiny drop in the ocean compared to enterprise today. Now, the good news is, last year, about 13 or 14 new Java-based cloud providers put out their offerings, so I'll just list a few here. Obviously, you can go for the IaaS type style solution, Amazon EC2, deploy your own whatever the hell you like, and off you go. But people like Heroku, JElastic, Cloudbees, OpenShift, Cloud Foundry, and the list goes on and on and on. Did not forget to mention Oracle. Oracle also has one now.
Oracle Cloud.
Oracle Cloud for the win. Google App Engine. These are all places where you can open up a free account, deploy your Java application to the cloud, and start learning about this environment all in the space of about 25 minutes. Again, you can do this with your friends at lunchtime, or colleagues after work, or your local Java user group. And you don't have to worry about this panic of, oh, I'm not cloud ready, I don't have cloud skills on my CV, I don't know what I'm doing. 25 minutes, it's that easy. And you'll actually realize how restrictive and how annoying the cloud environment is, especially for Java. It's not there yet by any stretch of the imagination. Leading on to hype. Mobile. Who here has written an iOS or an Android application? And did you make millions from it? Didn't think so, otherwise you'd buy this boat and you'd be the owner of this boat. So the reality is, in mobile, if you're an individual developer, the days of being an individual developer and scoring it big and making millions and having an impact on the world, yeah, I'm sorry, those days are gone. There are now over 4 or 5 million apps for iOS and Android alone. The really good stuff is actually being built by large mobile games and mobile app studios with budgets going into the millions. The ecosystem has actually already more or less been played out. So as an individual developer, I would suggest that you do not quit your day job and build the next mobile app, because the chances are you're better off buying a lotto ticket. That's just about all I'll say about mobile. Except for one little extra fun thing about mobile. So for the people who've written Android applications, raise your hands again. How are you going about with porting it to the, I think it's now 782 different display environments? Is that working out okay for you? It's probably not really, is it? This is one of the major problems with Android development in particular, and not many people have solved it, so looking at Vaadin 8 maybe, to maybe solve that problem for Android developers going forwards. Just going to skip that. Mobile's pretty boring. NoSQL and big data. Yes. So I have actually forayed into this field myself recently. We decided to go with MongoDB. And why did we go with MongoDB? Well, MongoDB is weak scale. So we actually did evaluate NoSQL very carefully against traditional, relational database systems, because we are deploying to the cloud because we're cool, lean, startup, ninja hipsters, and we do need things like reliability. If one Amazon node goes down, we need our entire application stack to keep going. So the NoSQL family of databases does give you automatic horizontal scalability and failover, assuming you configure them correctly and you light the right black candles. However, there is a big problem with NoSQL databases and big data today, and that is querying the damn things. So at the moment, for our MongoDB instance, I am writing JSON to query my database. And our financial director was quite curious about how we were doing selling our products. So he said, how can I log into our administration application or somewhere and I can get some reports about how many products we've sold last week? And I said, have I taught you JSON yet? And he said, are you telling me to go screw myself? Because that's exactly what I'm hearing. So in terms of this whole kind of web scale, horizontal scale, failover, rapid development is very useful in NoSQL because you don't have to define any data structures, which developers love, DBAs hate. You have a very real problem in actually getting the data back out. So choose your NoSQL solution carefully and make sure you've got a story around your querying, otherwise you will bite yourself in the foot. I still don't know how many products we sold to our customers today. Not a good place for a startup to be. The other thing with NoSQL is you need to think about the type of data you're storing. There are column databases, there are object databases, there are document databases, there are graph databases, which is really good for social networking stuff. So don't just blindly go for Mongo or Cassandra or something that's got more popularity. You need to really take a look at what's going on internally in these databases. Non-functionals, as I mentioned, matter. Do you need querying? Do you need eventual consistency? Do you need failover? Etc. Alright, and I'm coming to the end. So normally I ask for anti-patterns from the crowd, but you might as well just tell me at the bar, which we're going to go to very quickly after this talk. So my final piece of advice is whatever you do, take a deep breath. If you read Hacker News, if you read Slashdot, if you read Java Lobby or any of these other sites at the moment, it feels very overwhelming as a developer today. It feels like you need to learn the latest thing every 3 weeks, and it becomes very stressful. Don't panic. Be good at the principles. Evaluate and prototype things with your friends, because we're all in this together. And you will actually forge your own path and find the technologies and the techniques that will last you for the rest of your career. And you don't need to worry about the hype and the other nonsense that's out there. So last couple of thank you slides. I do a bunch of community stuff around OpenJDK, which is hacking on Java itself, and JSRs, which are more or less hacking on Java Enterprise standards. If you want to talk about those, come and see me, or Steve at the front here, or Heather if you wave at the back. Yay! So we run these kind of global programs to get developers working on Java itself and thing, which is another cool way to learn new/old tech. And that's about it. I think we should probably go to the boat bar.